We've all been there before, right? When a friend or a family member or maybe some complete rando at the bookstore we've decided to chat up says, "What do you mean you haven't read fill in the blank?" This happened to me the other day with my 18-year-old daughter. We're driving and she's talking about her favorite book, The Great Gatsby, and I just made an offhanded comment of, "Yeah, I should really read that one day." And the look of shock and horror and dismay and the sounds that emanated from her body were ones that, well, were a little unsettling. And I thought to myself, why haven't I read The Great Gatsby? I don't have a good reason. And I started to think through all those different books that, for one reason or another, I just haven't read that it seems like everyone else has read, or they were really highly reviewed. And I just kind of went, meh, maybe one day. So I have 10 of those books. And this is what I wanted to do. I not only wanted to share what those 10 books are and the reasons maybe why I haven't picked them up or read them before, but I've also set myself a challenge that over the next 4 months, I'm going to work my way through these 10 books and read each of them. So at the end of this, I have a little wheel of choice that I'm going to spin to see what that first book will be as just a little bit of a literary journey, because there are apparently some bangers on this list. The first book is obvious, The Great Gatsby. It wasn't required reading at my high school, or maybe it was, just not in my level of English. I was not the best student in high school. I made some questionable decisions. But it just wasn't one of those books that I had to read. To Kill a Mockingbird? Sure. The Crucible? Of course. Where the Red Fern Grows? That was middle school and still makes me cry every time I think about it. But not The Great Gatsby. Another book that I've never read that so many people hold in such high regard is Dune. Um, I don't like the desert. Stories set in the desert don't interest me. I haven't seen the new movies. I have a vague recollection of the like 1980s movie with Kyle MacLachlan, I think, and the blue eyes, and I know they're sandworms. The story has just never really interested me, but I know it is a really popular book. But besides the fact that I just don't like the desert, and I guess I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, that probably has something to do with it. I just have never read it. Jane Eyre. For a lot of my female friends, this is one of those books that they look at as foundational to their love of reading. They look back at their kind of maturation as a reader, and that book is cited time and time again. The strong female protagonist, the nuance that exists in that book, the character development, and just everything about that book seems to work. Now, to be fair, the storyline has just never interested me. But it is one of those books that I feel like in some ways that I'm missing out on that I haven't read because I know how impactful it has been for so many people. And here's my just general belief of stories. A good story is a good story, regardless of it's one that you're naturally drawn to or not. And so I think there's some value in being able to push past maybe what you would typically go and read, and choosing something that maybe is a little different or a little bit more challenging, that might require more of you, that might challenge kind of just the linguistic side of your brain or different parts of your kind of compassion and empathy. And so I'm actually pretty excited about reading Jane Eyre. I wouldn't think I would be. I'm not, however, excited to read this next one, Lolita. Um, Look, the conceit of Lolita is just really upsetting to me. Like, I don't, it's been one of those books that I know has been talked about so much. And it's very controversial for, I think, a lot of really good reasons. Um, I think it is one of those books that I don't know if it would be as popular as it is if it wasn't as controversial as it is. And that's not to say that the writing's not good. And honestly, I don't even know the full story. I have a lot of presuppositions of what people have told me or just kind of reading the dust jacket kind of a thing. But I am one of those believers that if you're going to read something, at least allow it to have some kind of value. And I have a big question mark with this one. I am going to read it, but we'll see how that one goes. I will say, out of any of the books on this list, that is the one that I'm still struggling with the most on whether or not there's any value in reading it. Because I, as much as I'm a firm believer in, hey, reading is a good thing, and just get yourself reading, find those things that engage your mind, even if it's things that you disagree with. There still has to be some value. And if I'm having to search for the value, I don't know if that's a good use of my time. So we'll see how that one goes. The Little Prince. I love children's literature, and it boggles my mind that I've never read The Little Prince. I've seen it everywhere. The drawings themselves are so emotive. Like there are so many things about The Little Prince that just seems right up my alley. When my daughter was itty bitty, I don't know how we never got that book. So I'm actually really excited about reading The Little Prince. I know that will be the quickest book. It'll probably take like, I don't know, 15 minutes. But I'm actually really excited, maybe longer. But The Little Prince is definitely one of those. Frankenstein. I'm a horror fan, and I'm actually pretty like deeply ashamed. I'm deeply ashamed that I've never read Frankenstein. The story of how it was even written is fascinating, and especially when you this gets really geeky, like the year without a summer because of a volcanic eruption in like the South Pacific, it helped lead to that little author's retreat of friend. Like there's so many things about the background of the story that I find fascinating. I think with the story of Frankenstein, the reason I haven't read it, besides the fact that I just haven't. Like, I don't know if I could give any good excuses. I grew up watching the Universal movies, grew up going to Universal Studios in California. I've seen so many countless iterations of Frankenstein that I feel like I know the story so well that I think I'm just like, what's the point? Um, which is dumb. Like, that's arrogant, right? So, I am finally going to read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I'm kind of hoping that my little wheel of choosing kind of locks it in October because that does feel like a really good time to read it. Love in the Time of Cholera. This is a book that most men I know who don't like romance or that's not something that they're drawn to appreciate this book on a very deep level. Most women I know also really appreciate this book on a very deep level. It has sold millions and millions of copies. It's been very popular around the world. It's been translated in all kinds of different languages. Again, I'm not necessarily a romance guy. That's not usually the books that I lean to, let alone like romance that's also kind of tragic and sad because I'm like, oh gosh, there's so many mixed emotions with that I'm like, I don't know. But that is one of those books that has actually been on my TBR as well as one that I just haven't read, and so I'm putting that on there. Jaws. Full transparency, I didn't know Jaws was a book. Like, Jaws is in my top 10 movies of all time. Um, I think it is a near perfect thriller and horror film. I think Steven Spielberg, what he did with that film is incredible. Let's not talk about Jaws 2, 3, and 4 and all the other ones. So I didn't know Jaws was a book, let alone that it was one of the best selling books of all time. So I love Jurassic Park, right? I love Jurassic Park the movie. So why not read Jaws? So I'm gonna read Jaws. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I know that this is a beloved book. I love British wit. I love irony. I love sarcasm. I love all those kinds of things. Uh, but again, sci-fi is just not usually the lane that I go down. I'll go down fantasy, horror, thriller, mystery, all those before I go down sci-fi. Um, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is also one of those books that I have just had friends most of my life who this is the book. This is one of two books. The second book is after this one. That they were so annoying with it. Like, dude, you got to read it. You got to read it. How have you not read it yet? We're going to go see the movie. Are you going to go see the movie? We're going to go see the movie. But you got to read the book first. Read the book, and then we're going to watch the movie. Like, how have you not read it yet? How have you not read it yet? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the next book are by far, and Dune. That's another one that I get, and The Great Gatsby. All of these, I get the shocked thing. But the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is very much one of those books that is so beloved by so many people because it is so witty and funny and sarcastic and just right on the nose with a lot of different aspects. So I'm told, because I haven't read it. I haven't watched the movie either. I just haven't. So I'm actually this is another one that I'm maybe it's just because I'm in a different place in my life. I'm pretty stoked about reading this one. And then the last one is a Game of Thrones. Um, I love fantasy. Love fantasy. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are some of my favorite books of all time. I read more fantasy probably than any other genre. Uh, a Game of Thrones, even before the HBO series came out, was not something that interested me. Mostly because I like my fantasy epic, certainly, but I don't necessarily like it dark. And from the people that I knew that had read it, a lot of them were talking about just how gritty and how dark it was. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, so much of my life, when the first two books in particular were coming out, was already really dark. And so the idea of reading like things that didn't feel like an escape just didn't resonate with me. Then the HBO series came out, and good gravy, just cultural juggernaut, right? And it became a point of pride, like, I'm never going to read this. I don't want to read this. And I watched one episode of the TV show and I was like, nope, not for me. I'm like, way too much incest and spiciness because YouTube, and like, violence doesn't bother me, but I'm like, oh, that is just a lot. This is just a lot. And I'm not squeamish, but I was just like, I have to have some kind of through line of hope. I have to have some kind of, I'm good with complex characters. I'm good with layered characters. People don't need to be perfect. I'm okay with not having a hero's journey, but like, it can't just be dark and depressive. And so many people have told me over the years, look, the TV shows throw gasoline on on a lot of things in Game of Thrones. The spice and the violence and kind of some of the more twisted nature, they really amp that up because it draws attention and draw eyes. But the books, like, just from a character standpoint, a character development standpoint, if you're someone that likes character and plot, like, they so many people have told me it's near perfection. And I've just continued to dig my heels in. And I think I'm finally just going to relent and give it a go, and we'll see. At the very least, I'm going to read the first book, and we'll see how it goes from there. Uh, I don't know if the series will ever be finished. I'm okay with that. Like, if the books really end up being as good as everyone says they are, I'm happy to enjoy it as long as I can for what's out there. I feel like authors, especially authors that get huge and have such a huge fan base, like, toxic fandom can get in there. Actually, Death of the Author touches on that idea a lot. A book that came out earlier this year, pretty good book, if you haven't read it. And I feel bad for George R. R. Martin. Like, I'm like, give the guy a break. Like, like, there's just a lot there. Anyway, so those are my 10 books that I am going to be reading over the next 4 months. And now, because technology, I have my little wheel thing here, but I'll do a screen record and put it up. Let's see what my first book is going to be. Oh, it makes a beeping sound. That's annoying. Okay, so the first book is going to be Lolita. So one book, that's fine. Let's get it out of the way. Yeah, I think on my shorts, I will kind of give updates, and then when I'm ready to pick the next book, I'll probably make another long form video. But let me know down in the comments below, what are some of those books that people have said, what do you mean you haven't read them? And what's the reason you haven't read them? No judgment, but I think we all have those lists, right? All right. I hope you have a great day. And no matter where you're at, I hope you're reading something great. Bye.